What's up guys, I'm Lizzie. Today we're gonna go over 10 tips and tricks every equestrian should know. And when I say every equestrian, I mean every equestrian. When you're measuring a saddle for your seat size, Western and English saddles are actually measured differently. So a Western saddle, you measure from the back of the pommel to the front of the cantle, and you go from the deepest point of the pommel to the seat seam on the edge of the cantle. And that is going to be your seat size. And with an English saddle, a lot of people assume that you measure it the same as a Western saddle, where you go from the middle of the pommel to the middle of the cantle. But with an English saddle, you actually have to go from this little button right here, which usually has the saddle brand or logo on it. And so you're going to go from the middle of that button to the center of the cantle, and that is going to be your seat size. And if you're new to saddle shopping, or if all you know is Western saddles, or all you know is English saddles, and you don't know what seat size you would need in the other discipline, it's actually pretty simple. Usually, not all the times, whatever size you are in an English saddle is going to be 2 inches smaller in a Western saddle. And the other way around, whatever size you are in a Western saddle, it's going to be 2 inches larger in an English saddle. But that's not always the case, because depending on the type of saddle, the brand, the model, or whatever, especially with English saddles, it's going to really change the feel of the seat. Even though there are 2 English saddles that could both measure a 17-inch, one could feel a lot bigger than the other depending on if it has a really deep seat, if it's a shallow seat, it could feel like it has more or less support area on it. So say you're an average and 17-inch in an English saddle, you're going to be probably a 15-inch in a Western saddle. Or other way around, if you're a 15-inch in a Western saddle, you're most likely going to be around in a 17-inch in an English saddle. It's perfectly okay to soak your leather saddle, as long as you give it a really good scrubbing with oil and wax once it's dried, which I was planning on doing, but then it started raining out of nowhere, so I'm just gonna have to do it tomorrow. But the reason is, once leather gets wet, it'll then get really dry because it won't have any of its natural oils on it, so it'll dry out really hard and become really stiff, and then it'll be more likely to crack. So you want to give it a really good rubbing with a natural leather oil and the scrubbing with some beeswax. And you'll put that natural oils back into the leather pores, and it'll be flexible and good as new. So don't freak out if you get caught in a rainstorm, or if you go swimming with your tack. You didn't ruin your tack, it's fine. You can save it with some oil and wax, just scrub it into those pores and get it nice and flexible, and it's good as new. Cool. If you are a beginner equestrian, or if you are an equestrian, you will obviously know that most people will tell you never to walk behind a horse. And if you are an equestrian, you know that most equestrians do not follow this rule, because there's actually a safe way to be able to walk behind a horse without a risk of getting kicked. I know there's bugs. Now, if you're dealing with a green horse or an unfamiliar horse, it's always safe to practice these things, even if you are an experienced equestrian. So here's what you could do to practice walking behind your horse more safely. Say you're going to walk behind your horse, here's what you should do. Put a hand on their back and just run it all the way down to their butt, so that they know and they can feel that you're right here, and it's not spooky or sudden for them to see you or feel you right behind them. So run your hand down their back and walk yourself right behind their butt. You don't want a lot of space back here, because this gives them room to kick. If we're right up behind their butt, there's no room for them to kick easily. Not saying it can't happen, but it usually is a safer way to walk behind your horse. Unless you're desensitizing your horse to spookier objects like a tarp or a bouncing ball or something that might startle them, you probably want to take this a good distance behind them while they're getting comfortable with it, because it can be spooky for them and sudden. Their intention may not be to kick you, but if they are suddenly spooked, they don't know what you have behind them, and suddenly something is making noise behind them, their first reaction may be to kick. So if you're going to be desensitizing your horse to something like that, I recommend by bringing that spooky object far away from their butt so they can't kick you. And also make sure that they go with it in the front too. They can touch it and see it and hear it make all the sounds, and make sure that they're comfortable with it there before bringing it around to their back, because they feel most threatened and vulnerable when it's at their back. So if you're going to be walking behind your horse's butt with something that could potentially scare them, even carrying a saddle around or something, if they're a green horse, just make sure you give them a good distance. This is also very similar as to how you would pick up their back leg. Now, if you're new to horses, you're new to picking up their feet or whatever, and especially if this is a unfamiliar horse, a green horse or whatever, it's always unsafe to go and just grab their leg. You're putting your face down in kicking reach, and you could startle them with suddenly grabbing them or whatever. So the safest way to pick up their back leg is to put a hand on their butt and run it down their leg till right here. And then you can pick it up to grow. That way they can also feel your hand coming down, and if they're used to this, they'll already have their leg picked up by the time you get right here. If you constantly find yourself in the chair position and maybe you have a trainer that's constantly nagging you to get out of the chair position and find your shoulder hip heel alignment, but you feel like it doesn't matter how hard you practice or try, you just can't get yourself out of that position, I've got good news and bad news for you. Most likely your saddle does not fit you. And every time you try to have proper posture, your saddle is fighting against you to put you back in that chair position. And for those who might not know what a chair position is or looks like, it looks like this, like you're sitting in a chair. Proper posture is where you could draw a straight line from your shoulder, hip, and heel. But if you're stuck in the chair position, suddenly it's just your shoulder and hip, and your feet are way out in front of you. You're gonna have a much harder time posting and keeping your legs still because there's gonna be this swinging motion, and you're gonna have a much harder time being light on the saddle when you're coming back down from a post, which also makes it very hard on the horse's back when you're not aligned, and makes their job harder. It does not matter the discipline either. This is a common problem seen in a lot of different riders. A lot of Western riders look like they're riding downhill because they lean back and their feet go out in front of them, and this is really hard on the horse. It ruins their center of balance. It ruins your center of balance. Their center of balance is their sternum and straight up behind their shoulder blade. That is usually where we want to try to align ourselves so that we can be in their center of balance. But if we're leaning back really far because our saddle is putting us in the chair position and our feet are out in front of us, we're gonna have a bad seat, we're gonna have bad balance, we're not going to be able to use our leg cues properly, because how can we use our legs when our legs are out in front of us like this? So again, we want proper posture, and we want to be able to be sitting in the horse's center of balance with our shoulder hip heel alignment. Similarly with this next one, if you're dealing with the struggle of your knees and toes always pointing out, and you're constantly trying to turn them in, and you see people online telling you how to, it's super easy how you just turn your knees in and your toes follow, and you don't actually turn it at the knee, you turn it at the hip. But it doesn't matter how hard you practice or how hard you try, you just cannot get your knees and your toes to stay pointing forward, and it feels really forced, and like you get joint pain and stuff. You just can't ride properly because you're so focused on your knees and toes pointing forward. Well, I got good news for you, because it's not your fault. Your saddle does not fit you, and it's forcing your knees out, and of course your toes are going to follow. And if you try to twist it, it's going to cause a lot of joint pain and make you not ride as well. And it's going to interrupt the horse's ability to perform well. And as you can see, the saddle does not fit me either. Next up, we got stirrup length and how to choose the right length for your height and for your discipline. So how we find the right length? Let your feet hang, and the ideal length for regular riding, whether you do trail riding or you're just doing flat work or barrel racing, you want your stirrup bar, or the bottom of your stirrup, to bump your ankle, which is right here. And that's gonna make it so you have just the right amount of bend in your leg so that you can post nicely, you can pick yourself up out of the saddle, and it also gives you room to be able to put your heel down. Now, depending on your discipline, it might help to change your stirrup length. So if you're gonna be jumping, usually you wanna put your stirrups 2 holes higher, which is gonna put your stirrup bar usually right above your ankle. Or if you're doing dressage, usually you want a little bit longer of a stirrup. So you could either go 1 hole longer than your regular length, or you can drop your feet and have the stirrup bar go flat with your foot. I wanna jump, so I wanna bump my stirrups up 2 holes so you can see what that looks like. Now when I hang my foot out flat, the stirrup bar is right above my ankle. This is gonna make it a little bit easier for me to jump because it's gonna keep my leg a little bit more still. It's gonna be easier for me to put my heel down, and I have more spring in my leg so that I can go through with the jump. The regular stirrup length also applies to most Western riders. So if you let your feet out of the stirrups and you just hang them, you want your stirrup to be bumping your ankle. That's a good sign that you have the right length stirrup. Again, this will put a nice bend in your leg. It'll allow you to stand up in the saddle, and it'll also allow you to have proper foot posture. But again, it can also depend on the type of Western riding you like to do. Some barrel racers like to have their stirrups a little bit shorter. It's all a personal preference at that point. Stirrup length is very important, which brings me to my next one, which is foot posture, which is also very important, and it goes hand in hand with stirrup length. Now, it doesn't matter what discipline you do, foot posture should be taught everywhere because it's a safety thing. It can put you in the chair seat if you have the wrong foot posture. It can be hazardous if you get your foot stuck or if your foot comes off too easily. So knowing proper foot posture is very important. A good rule of thumb is basically you want the ball of your foot to sit flat on your stirrup bar. This is going to make it easy for you to put your weight into your stirrups while you post. It's going to make it easy for you to be able to put your heel down, and it's much harder for you to lose your stirrup while you have this proper foot posture. If you have the stirrup jammed all the way back to your heel, this is now going to ruin your ability to put your heels down, and it's also a hazard because if you fall off, your foot could get stuck. And if you have the opposite with just your toe in, it's going to be very easy for your foot to slide out. It's going to make your posting job much harder. It's going to give you a less stable leg, and it's going to make it hard for you to also put your heel down because you're not relying on your toes to grip that stirrup bar. So you put the stirrup on the ball of your foot, and that is where your weight is going to be, and you're going to slightly put your heel down, and that's just going to ensure that your foot is in there safely and it's not going to easily come out, only when you want it to. And this is another reason why stirrup length is very important, because if you have too long of stirrups, it's going to be very hard for you to find the right foot posture, and your foot is going to slide out of the stirrup too easily. And having too short of stirrups is also going to give you joint pain, and it's going to put you in the chair position and make your job harder. A lot of Western riders will stuff their whole foot into the stirrup so that the stirrup is jammed up against the heel of your boot. It's because we do a lot of sloppy, quick riding, we do a lot of stopping and turning, and so we really have to focus on deepening our seat, but it also makes us stick our toes down and get our foot stuck in the stirrup because we're so focused on what we're doing up here. Plus, a lot of Western riders like to have really big spurs, which if you have bad foot posture, you're gonna have way less control over where that spur ends up. We just had a big gust of wind come through and change the weather, so yeah. For the last one, I decided to do a stretch, and not just any stretch. I chose this one in particular because it's kind of controversial to do with your horse, because some people have rumored that it can hurt the horse. So I want to go over it, and that is the tail stretch. Now, before starting this, practicing this or whatever, you want to make sure that you have a calm, relaxed horse that can stand square, and a good indication that they're relaxed is that you can pick up their tail easily, which really helps with this stretch. Now, I think the reason that this stretch has gotten a bad rep, some people think that it's bad to do on the horse, is because there is a condition that a horse can have. So if you go to do this with your horse and your horse's tail feels loose and has a give of 1/4 to 1/2 inch, immediately stop. That means your horse has a joint problem, but it's not uncommon. Continuing to stretch the tail could trigger pain, or it could result in a strain of the tail attachment site. So if you notice this with your horse, obviously don't stretch it, and you should probably bring it up to your vet or your body worker. So now that we got that out of the way and we know that our horse is comfortable with us behind them, we can start on the stretch. Now, Stella's a little bugged right now and she doesn't really want me stretching her tail, so I'm gonna try to just go through it quickly. You wanna gently grip their tailbone, and you're just going to kind of lean against them. And if they're enjoying this stretch, they're going to pull against you and really deepen that stretch. So I don't think Stella's going to do it right now because she's bugged and impatient. So, and don't overdo it either. But I think including the tail stretch into your daily stretching routine might benefit your horse. That's it for this video, guys. Let me know if you guys like this kind of video by commenting down below. I post new videos every single Sunday, so don't forget to subscribe. And you can go follow me on Instagram and TikTok. And I'll see you guys next week, Sunday. Bye! Good girl.